Welcome back, everyone. I'm Zell, and today we're looking at the Plague Doctor. Now, first off, let's define what a Plague Doctor is besides this knife. Back when the bubonic plague was going on, they weren't always physicians, but there were people hired to care for the people that had the plague. And these people that were hired tried to protect themselves. And that's where the crazy mask comes in. That if you do a search on Plague Doctor, shows up with these guys that just look evil. They look like the Spy versus Spy guys, only very evil. And kind of neat, but that outfit came around somewhere around 1620. There was one of the doctors that come up with this outfit for them to wear that had this kind of a beak nose thing, and it wasn't to make them look scary or freaky or anything. They had scented things and supposedly filtering things in that nose, and then they had some kind of like glasses built into it and a waxed cape and the such like to protect themselves. Anyhow, if you want to look up Plague Doctor on Google, there's all kinds of good articles from the BBC and Wikipedia and several other places. But today we're talking about the knife. I just kind of wanted to get that out there because I thought it was pretty freaking cool as far as a name went, because that's kind of how this went down. I got contacted by Steel Will. They said, you want to look at a Plague Doctor? And I said, well, any knife that's named Plague Doctor, I want to look at it because that's just a cool name. And they sent one over. And it is a pretty cool knife. Now, let's get a good look at it, and then we need to talk about size and weight. But first off, get a good look at that G10. That is done very well. It's a peel ply style. And we have a backspacer, and I'm not sure if the backspacer is G10 or Zytel or something of that sort. But it looks really nice. It's not really office hand friendly jimping, but whenever I have it in my hand, it doesn't really get to me. We've got a reasonable size lanyard hole and a bent steel pocket clip that seems to work good everywhere. And we're good. And it is tip up, left or right hand. It is a liner lock. They got everything set up really well, and it's got that steel wheel on phosphor bronze bushings action. So before we get too deep into it, let's get into some size comparison. And this is kind of important because I'm going to bring out some pretty big knives here. That is a Roxy 4 prototype. That is a SMF from Strider. And the SMF is the 4-inch model, the big one. The Plague Doctor is bigger than both of them. I've got some more big knives. Here we have a Spyderco Military, another really big knife. And the Plague Doctor makes it look small. And here is a Praetorian Genesis. Plague Doctor's still bigger than the Genesis. In fact, the only thing I think I have that is as big as this Plague Doctor is a maybe a full-size Praetorian that I have, and probably the Mr. Blade. I forget what it was called, but that Mr. Blade knife I reviewed a year or two ago, maybe 3 years ago, a long time. And it was a big old beast of a knife too. So let's look at the blade, because the blade is cool and probably where Plague Doctor comes from. Got this curve here, and then we got this beak sticking out. Got some nice swedge work up here. It is flat ground and really high, and we'll get, we don't even need to get the measurement, but I am going to get the calipers because I want to do all of these measurements on screen for you because you're not going to believe them unless I do. And you guys are awesome for letting me get over to the other desk. So let's kind of go through our measurements real quick, and let's get us there we go. Blade is 99.87 millimeters or 3.93 inches. And that is, basically a 4-inch blade. Our overall on this guy, I had to get the big calipers, is going to be big. We're somewhere around 9.6 inches. That is 244 millimeters. Wow. That handle, if you can't get your paws around this dude at about 4 inches, 4.3 inches, well, hey, you got really big paws, buddy. Little over half an inch thick, so that's what, 24 points or 14.5. I'm really trying to get the metric system in my head, guys, so I can do some design a little easier. But, it is fighting with me. It's not the numbers. The numbers make sense. It's getting the sizes. Anyhow, back to this guy. That blade, we got Plague Doctor and Veragini design. I didn't find much on that, but if you guys could help me out there, that'd be awesome. Our behind the edge thickness, we're under 20,000s. And if I remember right, it's under 20,000s all the way across. So it's a really big blade, and it's ground really thin for a big blade. In fact, in my opinion, too thin for a big blade, but I know all of you out there have listened to other YouTubers that want all their great blades ground as thin as humanly possible and still put an edge on them, or metallurgically possible and still put an edge on them. So you got your wish. I don't like that idea, because on a big heavy knife like this, you are putting yourself in a position where if you go out and you start beating on things the way this knife was designed and intended, well, obviously was not designed and intended to be used, but the way a knife of this size and style should be used, you definitely run the risk of edge deformation quicker. And I don't know, it makes it a slicing knife and not a hatchet, and this is supposed to be closer to a hatchet. It's but that's an opinion, so others have their opinion, and right now it's the prevailing one. Anyhow, moving along with this thing, mechanically, this thing is it's steel will. And what they do is they put a knife on phosphor bronze bushings and they make it square. It's square all the way across and centered up just like it should be. And that makes a knife on phosphor bronze bushings that works really, really well. The only company I know that does this better, and it's not with all their knives, but with their higher end stuff, is Spyderco with their military, paramilitary, etc. They do some great things. But they're the only other company I know currently that does things that great. And this is pretty great, guys. So, on to ergonomics. Nice, reasonable jumping up here. We talked about this a little bit. It's not really office hands friendly, but it is some sort of plastic. So you could take it out and you could soften that up pretty easy if it bothered you. But in my hands, it didn't bother me. And this is going to be a good knife for those sorts of things, and a good knife to carry around if you have property, if you go out hiking in the woods, that sort of thing. It's if you're just going to the office, I don't know if this is the right one, but they do make a smaller one, and we should talk about, we'll talk about that just a little bit. This guy is big, and it weighs in, and we'll do a weight right here in front of you. That way you can see I'm not joking around, because people are going to say I'm lying. This is 8.71 ounces. Now, Steel Will says it's 8.54, but here's the deal. That is the big one. The 3.4 inch blade model goes down to 5.47 ounces. So it's a little more reasonable, and this isn't unreasonable. I mean, I carried it for a few days and used the heck out of it. I kind of beat on this one because I felt like that's what it was designed for. Didn't have any problems with it whatsoever. The only problem I had is, for once, it's a knife that is really big in my pocket. And the only other knife to rival this thing for big in the pocket is a full-size Praetorian, or carrying this tipped down with the clip on the wrong end and these things sticking out, the jimping on the back of the knife sticking out at you. Are about the only thing I can think of that really rivals it for carrying it in the pocket. And this one doesn't poke at you anywhere. It's just that it's big. So, we've already covered that it's big, and you guys understand that, I think. Getting it in the pocket, fine. Carrying it in the pocket, fine. What I found myself doing is what I do with a lot of these big, flat, pancakey style knives. I ended up sticking it in my back pocket. And there you go. That's what it's going to look like in the pocket. And I will find those Levi's or get another pair. But, that is my pancake knife that I carry in my back pocket a lot. Once again, Plague Doctor makes it look small. That's not going to get old. But look at our lockup. Lockup is really good. And I do want to talk about the screws, because I have a feeling that's someplace that I'm going to be fussy. Because we've got those big old button head screw heads. You see those? Well, here's what Stillwell did. They put those big old screw heads in there, and they're T6 screws. See, that says T6. It says Weehaw on it too. They still haven't offered me a sponsorship. They're decent T6 screws. They're kind of deep. They're stainless steel, and the quality in stainless steel screws kind of varies, as we know. But they seem to be all right. But that's not the point. It's just like this pivot. It's a T8 pivot. They listened, and I've got the short ones. You'll have to watch the knurling. And the pivot's good. But here's the deal. You got that big old head. There's enough head there on those small screws. Dang, probably to put a T10 in. There's enough space there to put a T15, probably easily a T20. And they went with T6 and T8. Now, if they'd went T8 all the way through, I wouldn't be complaining. But since they didn't, I'm going to complain about the whole thing. These should have at the very least been T8, the two small screws. This could have been a T10, 15, or 20, preferably a 10 or a 15. And then we would have had nice, big Torx places to stick our Torx wrench. And people ask me why I fuss about that and why I always want something odd. T8 is the preferred. If you have a big enough pivot to stick a T10 or a T15 in it, go for it if you're the knife company. And here's why. T6 is used on cheap knives everywhere. So that means your customer is going to have a goobered up T6 bit. And whenever he goes to take it apart, he's going to goober up the screw. Whenever he goobers up the screw, well, then he's calling you, asking you for one screw. And that's not a good experience for the customer service. And it's an expensive customer service experience, having to send out one screw and take the human time and the postage for one screw. And it's not a good experience for the customer either, because they have a knife that doesn't work because of probably one screw. Where if you had put T8s all the way across it, most cheap knives don't use T8s. So the T8 driver that your customer owns is probably pretty decent. Less chance. If you use T10 or T15, that chance gets even greater because those drivers are in even better shape. Anyhow, and somebody's going to fuss down there in the comments that I went off the rails. You know what? That's what I do, guys. You've been watching these things for 3 years. Have I ever stayed on track? Heck no. Anyhow, that's probably why I've only got about 6,000 subscribers, because you really got to like what I'm talking about to stick around here. But anyhow, the Plague Doctor. I am kind of a fan. It's a big knife. They put everything in the right spot. They got the mechanics right. They got that flipper tab big enough, big old whale tail sticking out there. But whenever it goes down in your pocket, it's not an irritant. So for a big knife, they got it all right. And then they did it on phosphor bronze, and it works well. I don't know how sharp it is because, heck, I've been cutting all kinds of things you shouldn't cut with a knife with this thing, but apparently it's still really sharp. And that's from steel will. I haven't sharpened it. I haven't even hit it with crock sticks or anything. So there you go. Big fat liner lock. We'll look at the liner because I know it's kind of thick. That's nearly an 80 thousandths thick liner. Everything about this knife is robust. And the liners are, they are skeletonized. And the show side quite a bit. Lock side, not so much, of course. But guys, this one's cool. It's huge. So what would Zell do different? Well, obviously the screws. That would be my big thing. I would change that out, and I wouldn't make this thing lose any weight, though. I would keep it just as big as it is, and this is going to sound weird coming from me. I would probably buy the smaller one. Why? Because for me, this one is just too big. Not too heavy, just too big in my pocket. But I do love what they've done with the design. The design is so good that, I don't know, they're wanting $80 for the little one. I'll get that open so you guys can get a good look at it and get the gear out of the way. They want $80 for the little one and $85 for the big one. So it's up to you guys. I think they did a good job. D2 steel and blade, I think I forgot to mention that. As much abuse as I put on it, they apparently did a good job with the D2, so I would say you're good to go. If you like the knife, I mean, give it a try. Those are MSRPs I gave you, so it's going to come in a little less than that whenever you get it on the street. Should be a good one. Anyhow, not going to draw it out any further. Plague Doctor. Look up what a plague doctor is because that's cool. Kind of neat to read the history. And check out the various versions. They've got black. They've got this green. They have some of the models have a satin blade. Some of them have this stonewashed black, which Steel Will did a really good job with. And I've kind of beat the crap out of it, and it's still looking good. So I think you're good to go on the blade finish. And you guys have a wonderful day. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.